You know it's serious when I'm still in the work attire, not the hat, but the work shirt. Still in the work shirt. Because there's some stuff I didn't get to yesterday. By the way, funny thing about that live yesterday. I thought I had only talked for 40 minutes. Whatever my friend has given me, I don't know. I got questions. It's some weird, they did something with cannabis and then did it again and then, I don't know, but it's the weirdest thing. I'm having trippy experiences. I've never had such trippy experiences with any sort of edibles. They could have been strong, but trippy experience, no. Anywho's, yeah, so there were some things I didn't get to last time, and the more I thought about it, I've realized these are hard times. They're always hard times, but I'm talking about internally. People have a lot going on, and since it is the degenerate age or the end of the degenerate age, or maybe it's in full swing, regardless, in the chaos age, the Kali Yuga as some people call it, this is all indicative of what's happening inside, right? As above, so below, as within, as without, or whatever the fuck. Recently, people have been really going through some shit. And over the years, there's been just simple shit that I have done that has helped me weather these storms. Weather my storms. We're going to get into some stuff because people need wisdom. People need perspective. That's what people need. Not just wisdom, because, there's lots of wisdom out there. Wisdom! Here's wisdom, But lots of times, it's more people need perspectives. Perspectives on their life. Perspectives of what's going on internally. And Buddhism has helped me with understanding the perspective of my experience and what is happening. So I'm like, oh, right? If you go to a basketball game and you've never seen basketball, you don't know anything about the rules, it'd be very confusing. Once you know the rules, you're like, oh, okay, that's why he did that. That's why he's moving that way. You understand what's happening once you understand the dynamics of the game and the rules of the game. And your psychological, emotional bodies are no different, which, I was going hard on ego mind last night. But the more I thought about it, the more, there's a lot of occult shit we can get into. There's a lot of spiritual shit we can get into. But the more I think about it, the more I think about my own life, the shit that keeps people beaten down is their ego mind. They can't even get to spiritual shit because they're just stuck in ego mind land, right? Because it just turns into a beating. It turns into the beating from the ego mind. Excuse me. And yeah, anything spiritual, fucking forget about it. Excuse me. So from a psychological, oh man. Woo! So from a psychological, emotional standpoint, yeah, that's really where the work needs to take place, for, don't talk to me about any other shit. Cause frankly, one, if your earthly self is all screwy and fucked up, anything that you do get spiritually is gonna have a little stank on it, have a little taint to it. Doesn't mean it can't be great information, but it'll be filtered through your ego mind to a higher degree. It'll be filtered through your scattered psychological, emotional bodies. So, yeah, I don't need to go into a whole thing with that. But, point I'm trying to make is, specifically the book I'm about to read from, which I mentioned last night, which is, boom, Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. Actually, I gotta get my other one, because the other one's got highlights in it. So this book specifically, in addition to his other works he has out there, it gives you something to work with your own experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, it gives you kind of like a language, although it's not about the language, but when someone can kind of linguistically touch on something that happens in our psyche, it's very helpful. It's very helpful. And not just like, from a straight up psychological perspective. This is like Buddhist psychology, right? Not literally Buddhist psychology, because I know that's a specific thing. But the psychological science of Buddhism as it relates to specifically the ego. And this is just valuable information because, again, our essence is our essence. It's the purest part of us, right? I don't know why I always say right. Just reminds me of, what's his name? Kavan Shah. I can't think of his, Professor Griff. Like, are y'all following me? or Bobby, I mean, I guess it's like a teacher or a lecturer thing, because Bobby Hemmett would be like, y'all all right? How y'all doing out there? Just, if there's any questions, right? So that's my version, I guess, on right? It's not very, it's not much happening. Hold on, let me get this other book. So yeah, just having a language and having just an understanding of this part of our experience, right? Our ego mind, our psyche, our emotions, right? Because, just put ego mind in there. If it's happening in your body, just ego mind, okay? And it doesn't mean it's always bad, but just that is the greatest trick. It's like, yo, like I was like, oh man, there's so much shit. I like afterwards, I was like, man, I probably could have gone for 4 hours if I had remembered all this shit, because something I was thinking about is that's what the personality, the ego mind has on us, the cards it can play to get us to really believe that we're here in a body, right? It's our thinking and our feeling, That's why it's like, yo, y'all got to treat those as mirages. That's what they are. They're nothingness. They're empty, right? There's nothing there. There's literally nothing there. I could say that about, this phone, the wall behind me. Right? That's also no thing, right? It's just a funny illusion of our mind, right? But then you're talking about thoughts and feelings. That shit is really no thing. I mean, it's all no thing. But thoughts and feelings, they're just, you can't even hold on to those. At least a desk, it's like, oh, this desk is no thing. This desk is empty, right? It's like, hey, don't you hear that? That doesn't sound like empty to me. It's like, okay, you make a good case. But it's like a thought, a feeling, those are even more fleeting, But, it's all fleeting. They're all mirages. So that's the card the ego mind will always play, is to get you caught up in your thoughts, get you caught up in your feelings, and it really doesn't matter. It could be any sort of situation, but you could just get out of the true flow, the true Tao of it, and get caught up in your thoughts, and you can get caught up in your feelings, right? Thoughts, but there's the other side of it. Feelings tell us things just as thoughts tell us things, right? So just taking it as a mirage, but also information at the end of the day, because it wouldn't have come up in the mirage just to annoy you. Like there's a conditions arose, as they say. Conditions arose for you to get angry. Maybe the conditions were somebody cut you off, ate your sandwich at work, stole your hubcaps. Maybe any sort of conditions. But when these states of our mind come up, is it our essence that's mad that we don't have these hubcaps now? I don't think so. I don't think it's our essence. I think it's your personality. It's your ego mind, right? And you got to trace all that back. What is it about these hubcaps getting stolen? They're going to be so mad, I mean, you don't have to do that, but I think it's helpful if you do. Because, maybe you had lots of things stolen from your life and just like you're sick of it. Or maybe it's a violation of your privacy. And times you suddenly felt like it was just, someone was just in your ass. It's how violated you felt. It's how I felt. Someone stole something out of my car once, or twice. I was like, oh. It was only like change. I just felt so violated. I was like, oh, someone's in here taking things? Like, oh. And then later, like, it was funny. So that happens. And then another time, first of all, the first time I left my car unlocked. So, there's that. And then the other time, I may have also left my car unlocked. But they took a guitar that like I had back home. I was like, I'm going to restring this guitar, which I'd planned to do, but then I didn't even have an opportunity to potentially not do it. So there was that too. So we're going to get into some, without further ado, we're just going to start reading some shit. Again, this is Shemba, the Sacred Path of the Warrior. And if you have books and you don't have a book that's completely falling apart, then I don't think you're actually a bibliophile. You're just a person who has books. You're just a person who has books. Oh, by the way, hanging out with us, we got the lovable Green Tara. Say what's up to everybody. Hey, y'all, it's Green Tara. I just came back from New Orleans, and I love it there. I give everybody so much compassion, out in New Orleans. Isn't that how y'all say it? New Orleans? And while I was there, since I was so compassionate, I guess I picked up a southern accent because of the compassion I was spreading around and activating. Anyways, take it away, Pauls. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Green Tar. We appreciate your spreading compassion, So, the first chapter of this book, he talks about creating an enlightened society. Now, I'm gonna gloss over most of this and get to the meat and potatoes. It's all meat and potatoes. But, I want to get to the juicy parts. We want juice. We don't want meat and potatoes. Maybe we do want meat and potatoes. Okay. Yeah, I'm not even gonna read that. So this book is essentially about secular enlightenment. I need to get a new phone. This phone, I hope these videos work when I re-upload them. Because I don't have comments in my video. That's a brother panicism. Because now that it's like, I don't want to hear what people say. Then I'm sucked into what they're saying. Who cares? That's such a good point. It's the best. No comments. No comments on my videos. If you're so determined to ask me something, email me. Congratulations. Or you hit me up on Instagram. Thumbs up. But no, not on YouTube. Gross. It's like, I don't even know what that is. I can't even think of a metaphor. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what the fuck that is. And we're getting to forgiveness and compassion for self. I gotta remember that's on the docket. But I want to read a little bit of this. Okay, so it's about spiritual warriorship, this book. Spiritual warriorship. And we're going to talk about what spiritual warriorship is. And this is why spiritual warriorship ties into forgiveness, ties into compassion. All right? And ties into not being a fucking coward. Right? Because a spiritual warrior isn't a coward. Warriorship here does not refer to making war on others. Aggression is the source of our problems, not the solution. Here the word warrior is taken from the Tibetan Pawo, which literally means one who is brave. Warriorship in this context is the tradition of human bravery or the tradition of fearlessness. The North American Indians have such a tradition, and it also exists in South American Indian societies. The Japanese idea of the samurai also represent a warrior tradition of wisdom, and there have been principles of enlightened warriorship in Western Christian societies as well. That would be the Gnostics, by the way. Anyone's curious what they're referencing. King Arthur is a legendary example of warriorship in the Western studies, and great rulers in the Bible, such as King David, are examples of warriors common to both the Jewish and Christian traditions. On planet Earth, there have been many fine examples of warriorship. The key to warriorship and the first principle of Shambhala Visha is not being afraid of who you are. Not being afraid of who you are. Not being afraid of who you are. Any Simpsons fans out there? Bony old behind. That's what I was going for. Bony old behind! Bony old behind! Bony old behind! But yeah, not being afraid of who you are. Now, there's probably many ways you can slice this, but here's 2 quick ways we can just slice that statement and, do your own slicing. But I'm just going off the cuff here. I actually never even thought about slicing what he said into anything. So that's my first slice of that statement. Because you got to slice. That's why I was reading some shit or something about like the Dharma. I was like, yo, you got to beat that shit, hammer it, fucking burn it down, fucking shred it, essentially the point, it's like, just don't be like, oh, that's the teaching? Oh, okay. No. You receive the teaching and then you fucking bang that shit out. You know what I'm saying? You determine what it means, what it's worth, where its value is. What's the deeper understanding? All right. Don't just be like, oh, well, someone said that before me, so okay. No, you hammer that shit, so you got to do your own hammer. I've fucking hammered through this shit in this book for many, many years, and I'm still hammering through, as evidenced by the fact that I'm going to do something I've never even done when I've read this line so many times. Okay, so who you are. So that could be who you are in terms of this personality, this ego mind, in my case, Posh Gibson, Christopher Presley, right? I live here, I do this, right? That construct of, or that fake identity of who you are, right? It's like, you're not afraid of that. Even though it's false, even though it's like, again, no thing, not an actual thing, it's a character. You're not actually a doctor, but you're playing one on Earth, sort of thing, or you're not actually a mechanic, but you're playing one on Malkuth. You're not afraid of that. But, however, the higher way of looking at it is that you're not afraid of who you are in terms of your essence, in terms of not your personality, your fucking true essence. Deep, 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 deep down, even though it's all pervading, but, usually deep down is how we fucking think about these things. But it's like, why can't it be right on the tip of our nose? So, we're not afraid of either, and it's just, and it's funny to say, like, well, why would I be afraid of my true self? Or why would I be afraid of myself? Right? Why would I be afraid of myself? That's silly. I'm not afraid of myself. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, but you are, mon cher, you are. Because if you truly weren't afraid of yourself, you would never stay in the comfort zone. You'd be always just out, just exploring, adventuring, you know what I'm saying? Not doing toxic shit, not doing toxic behavior to yourself first and foremost. And yeah, that's, if I were to make a case about why the world is fucked up, even though, it's a prison, but it's also a playground. That's my line now. You come in, yeah, and it's like, yeah, you're in prison. But after it gets to a point where it's like, yo, your mind and your heart is the key to unlock your cell, right? And get out and turn into a playground, That's just me, though. Do your own research. DYR. Do your own research. DYOR. Dior. I'm on dire straits because I do my research. Yeah, people are, if I was to say, like, why is the world fucked up? I would say, well, it's like, that's just how this shit goes. That's just how this shit goes. But if I were to get a real answer, it's because people are cowards, and the ones that aren't cowards do fucked up shit. And then people who everyone else who's a coward doesn't do shit. That's why it's like the shit with the bully. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's like, oh, I don't know. Then someone fucking punches him right in his fucking nose. And everyone's like, oh. You know what I'm saying? But until someone punches them in their fucking eye socket, the one who is not operating in cowardice will reign supreme amongst the cowards. So, in the same way, if you don't stand up to the bully, ooh, we're getting deep here. If you don't stand up to the bully, that is your ego mind. You'll just always be a coward. Because that's really what it is. It's like, and I understand and I'm compassionate to it. And that's why it's like, I'm so thankful for all the Buddhist teachers. Not that I even went to Buddhist teachers that wrote things down and put out a book and did all that stuff and had it edited and, changed things around, and people published it and people sent it in boxes. And then people resold it online and I bought it for real cheap. But, I'm just so thankful for getting this knowledge when I did, because now it's really helping me, right? And I kind of just absorbed it, received it. And, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. And then some of it I just completely forgot about. But now it's sprouting, and it's very helpful, especially in these times, right? But you can say that about any time. But it's just things are coming up now where it's when I'm in a situation, I'm like, that's that. That's this slogan, and it's super fucking helpful. And that's why it's like, I keep hammering away about Lo Zhang, this book, these 3 books. Just get these 3 books and read any one of them in any order, and you don't have to go in order in the book. Just jump around, and it will enrich your experience of dealing with the chaotic world, your chaotic inner world and the chaotic outer world. Because you'll have a perspective. You'll have a way to see the landscape. That doesn't mean you always feel great. Doesn't mean you always feel wonderful. But you can at least look at the landscape and see why maybe this is happening, And lots of times that why is related to your ego mind. Why? It's my ego mind. So we get afraid of ourselves. And then we start doing other shit. We start doing drugs and alcohol and fucking and eating a whole bunch of food and fucking playing video games and being on our phone all the time and just, doing crossword puzzles and fucking building furniture. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of those things, but it turns into an escape from ourselves. That movie Escape from LA? Escape from New York? Wasn't that one of them too? But Escape from LA? That movie? Escape from yourself. I thought that was going to be cooler, but it wasn't. And, just understanding the ways you escape from yourself is super vital, because you won't be able to get anywhere until you understand the ways you escape from yourself, right? Because you're always, again, ego mind, gotta give it to the nigga. The nigga is clever. Gotta give it to it. Someone plays a practical joke that maybe is poor taste, but it was a clever joke. You'd be like, oh, okay. That was a clever one. Okay. I still hate you, but okay. That was a clever joke. So it's very clever. It's a very clever thing that knows you very well. I'm saying it's something outside yourself, but it's something within you, but it's part of you, but it's also within you. And you don't want to turn into a war, but you have to understand the manipulations that happen, that you agree to. right? And that's why like spiritual egotism is like the highest level, where it's like you graduate beyond that, like you're doing something, because that's like a very clever, slippery one, you know? Because people always want to feel good about themselves in all the different ways. So that's one of the big ego tricks, where it's like, don't you want to feel good? It's like, yeah, okay, just go in there and rob that bank. Don't you want to feel good? Yeah, just go punch that nigga in the face. Don't you want to feel good? Yeah, go, steal someone's pens. But it can go the other way. It's like, you piece of shit. Yeah, you are a piece of shit. Right? And this is us talking to ourselves. Or not even that, we're talking to ourselves. Because think of it like this. A thought appears. Right? You're just doing something, blah, 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 blah. You're writing down something on your calendar. And then, nothing related to what you're doing with your calendar. A thought appears, like, you can call Frank back. Right? And they instantly like, oh, right? You have a visceral reaction. Because you remember you didn't call Frank back, right? And then, a visceral reaction, right? And maybe you have a reaction to the reaction. Maybe when first feel it, after that thought, you're like, kind of like, ah, right? And then, maybe after that, you're like, yeah, you always be forgetting to call people back. Do you even care about them? That's where it starts. It already started, but you're being roped in, right? Being roped in, right? You gotta take the hook. Smart fish learn not to take the hook. I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure in terms of evolution, certain species of fish have been like, oh, that is actually hilarious in a weird sort of way, that it's like going to hook and potentially injure and potentially kill and eat a fish is called fishing. I don't know. I mean, at least hunting is called hunting, and, trapping. Imagine if it was just called bearing or deering. When you go shoot a deer, it's just like, oh, I'm going deering. I'm going fishing. Should, call it cast masting. It's going to catch on. The first cast masting championship brought to you by ESPN. Cast Masters. So, let's just keep reading. I don't know where I was going with that point. Okay. Yeah, so not being afraid of yourself, right? Shambhala vision teaches that in the face of the world's great problems, we can be heroic and kind at the same time. Shambhala vision is the opposite of selfishness. When we are afraid of ourselves and afraid of seeing and afraid of the seeming threat the world presents, then we become extremely selfish. Yeah. That's why it's like, yo, they always want to pump the chaos of the world into your fucking... They just want to drill into you so you know, this shit's fucked up. Hey, did you know this shit's fucked up? Hey, bitch, I know you were just eating a waffle, but this shit's fucked up. Are you paying attention? That's why it's like, yo, I'm reading this book called Urban Tantra, and the woman who wrote it was telling a story. She was telling a story about this restaurant where it's like a big S&M themed restaurant where you can get you can order a chicken cordon bleu off of one menu, and then you can be flogged by a waiter on another menu. And so she was talking about this time when that was exactly happening. This waiter, and everybody can see right in the restaurant, all these things happening. So she was talking about this time where this man was getting flogged by this waiter, whipped by this waiter. And she was saying how, he was so in the moment, like with the whole thing with, he wasn't trying to show off to the people watching. He was just like, oh, you want a whipping? I'm going to give you a whipping. And he was like in the moments, right? And so she was talking about this. And she said like he had 90% of his attention like on this man he was whipping and 10% on like things going around him, people walking by with food and, shit. So he was able to move around and, even though he was like in the zone whipping this person. And so the reason I say all that is to say probably even less than 10%, but let's say 10%, like I'm whipping away at occult science and like Buddhist practices and mystical shit. Right? But 10% of my awareness is like on what's going on in the world. I check in every once in a while, see what's popping and see if there's anything that is extra intriguing or extra interesting to me. But I mainly kind of just let that go on in the background. I know the main gist, and if anything really, really, really wild happens, like surprising, like, holy shit, no way, like, someone will tell me about it. So, I'll be informed. There'll be something that, I always see things trending and I'm like, oh, who the fuck is that? I'm like, oh, they died? Oh, okay. Anyways, too bad I killed them. But yeah, so, it's just seeing all this shit turns people into selfish people. We want to build our little nests, our own cocoon, so that we can live by ourselves in a secure way. While everyone has a responsibility to help the world, we can create additional chaos if we try to impose our ideas, or our help upon others. That's something I really resist doing now. Like, hey, here's what you need to do. I just like listen to people now. And I think that is the highest way you can help and support someone is just listening to them, like really listening. Not listening because an obligation, not listening because you like hearing them talk, not listening because it's easier than talking, not listening because, you have some other ulterior moment. It's like listening because like you want to have the space for that person to share what they got going on. Right? You want to put down a nice little blanket, maybe have some hors d'oeuvres for them and just like, hey, and some lemonade and hey, share. Hey, share some things, share. Oh, no, you're not talking too much. Just please share. I'd love to hear more. Please, no, keep going. Thank you. Anywho. So, all right, so I'm going to go to the next chapter, and, this is a good starting point. So this one is called Discovering Basic Goodness. Okay, so he has a little quotes that's from, like, later in the chapter, in the beginning. I always think that's cool, because it's like, ooh, that's going to be in there later, right? But it's like it's always a good way to start, because then you get some, like, ooh, yeah, and then the chapter starts, and you get, you find it later in the chapter. I don't know if there's a name for that specific thing, but that's cool. Okay, so by simply being on the spot, your life can become workable and even wonderful. You realize that you are capable of sitting like a king or a queen on a throne. The regalness of that situation shows you the dignity that comes from being still and simple. A great deal of chaos in the world occurs because people don't appreciate themselves. Having never developed sympathy or gentleness towards themselves, they cannot experience harmony or peace with themselves, and therefore, what they project to others is also inharmonious and confused. Instead of appreciating our lives, we often take our existence for granted, or we find it depressing and burdensome. People threaten to commit suicide because they aren't getting what they think they deserve out of life. They blackmail others with the threat of suicide, saying that they will kill themselves and certain things don't change. Certainly, we should take our lives seriously, but that doesn't mean driving ourselves to the brink of disaster by complaining about our problems or holding a grudge against the world. We have to accept personal responsibility for uplifting our lives. Don't be a coward. When you don't punish or condemn yourself, when you relax and appreciate your body and mind, and you begin to contact the fundamental notion of basic goodness in yourself. Did I skip a page? No. Okay. You begin to contact the fundamental notion of basic goodness in yourself. The thing where it's like you turn the page and you kind of lose the momentum of the sentence. And you're like, why did that sentence end so weird? So it is extremely important to be willing to open yourself to yourself. Open yourself to yourself? What did that Negro say? Yeah. Developing tenderness towards yourself allows you to see both your problems and your potential accurately. You don't feel that you have to ignore your problems or exaggerate your potential. That kind of gentleness towards yourself and appreciation of yourself is very necessary. It provides the ground for helping yourself and others. As human beings, we have a working basis within ourselves that allows us to uplift our state of existence and cheer up fully. That working basis is always available to us. We have a mind and a body which are very precious to us. Because we have a mind and body, we can comprehend the world. Existence is wonderful and precious. We don't know how long we will live, so while we have our life, why not make use of it? Before we even make use of it, why don't we appreciate it? And lastly, this is the means. He's talking about meditation. I just kind of skipped over that part, but this is the means. This is the means of rediscovering ourselves and our basic goodness. The means to tune ourselves into genuine reality without any expectations or preconceptions. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So let me just go back. So yeah, this is a hard thing to say to somebody. Like, this is a really hard thing to say to somebody. I'm about to say. That's why it's like, I don't know if I could say this to someone in this situation. But in this video, I can say it. Where it's like, if someone is really going through a dark place, like fundamentally, your ego is keeping you there, right? It's keeping you in a certain thought and feeling place for its own survival, right? Is the essence keeping you in a dark place? I don't think the essence could sound like that. You know, if the essence is like, well, this would be good for this bitch. It'd be good for this Negro to go through this. You know, it's gonna keep you there. Does it even have any dog in that fight? No. So just understanding that it's like it's one's perspectives on our thoughts and feelings that are really the issue sometimes. And, you know, the more you reinforce these thoughts and feelings, the stronger they become, like anything else. Like, if you just are doing 100 push-ups every day, every single day, a year time, watch out. Watch out. Watch out. It's difficult, I know. And I feel blessed in many ways because I don't feel that in certain ways I've had that much, I don't know. I feel like we all do have shit weighing us down. But I don't know what I was trying to say. But I'm just thankful for my experiences and what I've been able to do transformation and alchemy on in terms of trauma and negativity and darkness and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, sometimes you're like, it shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't have gone through this. I should not have had these tragedies. I should have not experienced these traumas. This shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't be doing this, right? We have all these things, especially when we're in low places, right? But it is happening. Those things did happen, right? We could say that they're a mirage too, right? That's why it's like you gotta have a grain of salt, even with the the worst trauma. It doesn't mean like you forget about it, right? Because it's like the energy will still be there. You don't forget about it, but it's like it's still a fleeting experience. It's like the wind. I know it didn't feel like the wind at the time. I know in your memory it doesn't feel like the wind. You need to get to a place where it does, and it's just a fleeting, sad, terrible thing that happened, but it's so fleeting, you know? Like the time when you were 10 when you got a lollipop. Do you remember that time? Like, no, because it was such a fleeting experience, right? Because, oh, you got a lollipop, right? And I understand comparing some deep trauma to just getting a lollipop one day, apples and oranges, right? But just like that is fleeting and it just happens and you moved on. It's like you got to figure out how to do that with your pain and your misery and your trauma. You figure out how to transform it. You figure out how to do the alchemy on it. And then it can really be a mirage, because it's not going to be a mirage or have the potential to be a mirage where it's like, you know, it's not something that just fucking uppercuts you in the fucking eye hole all the time, just unexpectedly when you're shopping at Geisler's, right? It's something that it's like, it's more of a conscious part of you. It's not running wild. It's not running rampant, or you're not letting it run rampant because you've dealt with it. You've transformed it. It's no longer a raw egg. It's an omelet now. You cracked a few eggs and made an omelet. Congratulations. You're an amazing chef. So, it's hard to, you know, this is why it's like, yo, we're in high Buddhist occult science land, because in the human world, it's like, you know, we often feed into victim mentalities of people. And it doesn't mean everybody who's going through some dark place is in a victim mentality place, but that can be another game of the ego mind. We were talking about that book, Chakras and the Archetypes, and Mbika Wouters. Well, I'm impressed I remember that name, because it wasn't like, you know, a easy, you know, simple name. Mbika, A-M-B-I-K-A, Wouters, W-A-U-T-E-R-S, chakra and their archetypes. And she's talking about the root chakra, about how it's the victim archetype when it's dysfunctional. It's the mother archetype when it's functional. And so, you know, since we're in a physical place, it kind of makes sense where if someone is dysfunctionally dealing with their reality, that they'll just snap into a victim archetype, right? Because everybody's got trauma, everybody's got pain. You know what I'm saying? And that's another ego trick. You know what I'm saying? You're not that special in terms of trauma, right? And I know that sounds strange to say, but it's the truth, right? I was talking about last night about like everyone has their like trauma merit badge from Malkuth. You kidding me? Everyone's got one, you know? Oh, you're a black woman? Oh man, you probably got so many. Oh, you're just a woman? Oh, you definitely have some, right? And this is not generalizing, but everyone has trauma merit badges. So we need to stop letting our ego be like, woe is me. It's just me. Why am I so fucked up? I. If you're just concerned about yourself, and like, especially in that way, that's why it's like going to stream where it's like, yo, I'm an indigo children. Yo, I'm so special, blah, 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 right? That's toxic as well. But going the other extreme as well and being like, oh, I'm so fucked up. What's wrong with me? Everyone else has their shit together. And these are things we think. Why can't I get my shit together? What's wrong with me? We isolate ourselves. We isolate ourselves and make it seem like we're the only person who's ever struggled ever in the history of anything. And everyone else out there is just doing A-okay, which is a fucking lie. And that's why we're afraid of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like we carry on those silly lies. We carry on the silly lies in our minds. And, you know, it only makes the situation worse. So you gotta dig yourself out of that shit. You gotta dig yourself out of turning a mountain into a molehill. psychologically and emotionally. Because that is the ego trap of ego traps. You know what I'm saying? You bite the hook, the one thing, it's glimmering out there, right? Imagine you're a fish. It's glimmering out there. Maybe it's like, oh, I need to, I was mentioning before, like, oh, you didn't call Frank back, right? That's glimmering out there. That's the hook. And we bite it like, yeah, I am shitty about returning calls. And then it's like, oh man, why am I so dumb? Why am I so forgetful? Like, oh my goodness, I wasn't always this bad with returning messages. And then it just keeps spiraling. And then your fucking ego mind's reeling you fucking in, okay? But it's like these thoughts can't get us caught up, like, unless we attach ourselves to them. We have, just like a fish. You know what I'm saying? You can't, like, throw the hook at the fish's mouth and it's like, oh, I got him. You know what I'm saying? The fish has to engage with the hook for it to get caught up. And we are no different. That's why analogies are hilarious. Because we are no different than fish. You are a fish. You are a fish. You are a fish. We bite hooks all the fucking day. And we'll go back to the same place and we'll seize that same fucking hook in our mind and we'll bite again. Because we're dumb sometimes. But it's like we're ignorant of our patterns is more the thing. We're ignorant of our patterns. And that's why it's like Buddhism is all about like studying your mind. It's like, and like doing things you don't like. That's been a huge hack for me lately. I don't do super things I don't like. Like, I'm not eating shellfish, which I really don't like. But if there's a situation and I can go this way or that way or this other way, I picked a way that I wouldn't normally pick, right? Like, I was at the store the other day and I was getting a soda. I love me some Hosmer sodas. Like, I have this Hosmer sparkling water. And there's certain ones that I specifically like, right? Like, I love birch beer. I have this thing with birch beer now where it's like, I fucking... What's up, heartbeat vibes? Peace. I love me some Hosmer soda, right? So when I was there recently, I love, like, all things being equal, I will 95% of the time will get a birch beer Hosmer soda, right? Over any other variety. But okay, so specifically, they're all out because probably I bought them all, or other people love them as much as me. So there are other ones, right? And there's kind of like my backup ones I'll go with. But I was like, okay, here's an opportunity. What ones would I not even ever want to fuck with? And I just went through the ones that, like, I always see them there, but, like, I don't even take them seriously in terms of, like, I would never buy that. Like, black cherry, I fuck with black cherry sodas, but like a regular cherry soda or like, they had like peach soda, like, and some of them I've tried and I've just been less than enthused, you know what I'm saying? So I was going through all these different ones. There was like a chocolate cream sodas I usually don't fuck with as much as I love root beers. They had sarsaparilla, which I had before, but it's like, I don't really like their root beers and sarsaparilla. But the point I'm trying to make in all this is that I didn't do the easy thing and go for though my number one choice wasn't there, I didn't go for my ones that I always wanted. I was like, okay, you're gonna soda, like, get one you normally wouldn't get. And I got like a ginger ale. It was pretty good. I never had the ginger ale. But the point is, you gotta investigate stuff you don't like, because that's such a powerful way to understand what the fuck is going on with my mind. You know what I'm saying? I guarantee you, if you do something that you mildly don't like, you'll if you're open to it, you'll learn something about yourself. Like, I made myself eat at this place in East Hartford that I usually go to for lunch when I usually get takeout. Like, I forced myself to sit in there. And it was like a place that there's always just like these old white men in there, and like, they're fine. Like, it's not like they're like, hey, nigger, it's like they're fine in there. But it's like, it was like the least, like, normally I don't want to sit in a place, even if it's a whole bunch of black people. But then it's like a whole bunch of white people in there. And I'm staying in. Oh man, like, there was like 2 strikes going on that, but I was like, nah, man, sit in there, right? So, I did, and it was fine. Actually, there were some funny moments that happened. People said some funny things, and these are the things I actually enjoyed myself, right? I didn't give in to how I normally act, what my ego mind wanted to do. Oh, we just get takeout, right? Oh, we don't sit in here, right? And it's always challenging that. And it's not that it's like it needs to be a war or a challenge, but exploring that. That's why it's also interesting, because it helps me explore things I wouldn't necessarily do unless I'm like, I want to. Carbines? Oh no, it's what is it called? Augie and Ray's. Augie and Ray's. It's like a little like burger spot, you know what I'm saying? Like an old kind of like, what are those places called? I don't even know. Like a canteen almost, you know, sort of spot. Yeah, I fuck with their shit, but yeah, it's always just so white in there. It's just always so funny to me. Like old and white, where it's like, if you're a tired white person in East Hartford, like this is where you go for lunch with your buddies. Like it's that spot. In addition to people who are like me who are just like working down the street and shit. But yeah, so it's like kind of cool, because like, hey, I went through the things and like, well, why don't I like this one? And I was kind of exploring the reasons why I didn't like these specific sodas. And also just in general, well, it's a good thing to explore because it gets you out of your comfort zone. I just wanted a birch beer. But I was like, okay, no birch beer, no clear seconds. Like, okay, we'll take this as an opportunity, right? Now, I don't know why I got on this whole thing about doing things you don't like. But it's very, very important, because it's like, the shit you do like, that's easier and harder to do at the same time. Because it's easier because it's like, ooh, I love donuts. Ooh, let's explore why I love donuts. It just sounds like me eating a lot of donuts, which is not what we're going for. But it's like your desires, you're always calling them towards you. So like generally you have more opportunities to kind of look at that mechanism of like, well, why do I want donuts right now? Why am I craving donuts? Oh, it's because I got yelled at work and, whatever. That's I just grab a donut when that happens, whatever the pattern is. But with aversions, with things we don't like, it's like we don't like them. So we're like, we're not exposing ourselves to those things we don't like them. So to get data and to get insight into this stuff, it's a little bit more difficult, because again, you're like, essentially it's like you gotta be a scientist who does experiments on things maybe you're not into, but it's like you want to see what's there, right? It's like, nah, not into mallards, but there's an opportunity to do some interesting research on these ducks in this random pond. So I'm going to do it. I'm more of a geese person, personally, as a researcher, but even though I hate ducks, we're going to take this grant and we're going to do research on ducks. And in my experience of just doing this past few months, it's been very helpful. It's been very helpful. And also doing it in grand ways where, I have moments where, especially with people, with friends, family, at work, where I know instantly the way I want something to happen, the way I want something to go. Right? So I'm always trying to subvert that. Where, like, for example, I was facilitating this community events over the weekend. And actually, it's like, it was so easy, like the table I had. They were all so cool. They're from Kenya and the Congo, and they were just telling me about like the difference between America and their, where they grew up. And it was just so fascinating. Like, I got paid to like learn about these wonderful folks from Kenya and the Congo on Saturday. It was like, what? I'm getting paid for this? Like, oh man, it was just one of those hilarious moments I truly, truly appreciate. Anyways, so at the end, someone had to go from the table and no one else wanted to go off, which I understood. I was the only Native American there, you know what I'm saying? I even learned Swahili. Habari, Jambo, Asante. That's, how are you? Hello, and not in that order, but and thank you in Swahili, because they literally were talking Swahili with each other numerous times. And then the other facilitator was also from Congo. He'd be like, "So what we were talking about was," and I was like, "Ooh, I love this. I love being humbled, where it's like I'm not the whatever you want to call it. I'm not the top person here, quote unquote. I'm not that's a terrible way of describing it, but I'm not you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like there was one person who only spoke Swahili and a whole bunch of Westerners there. you know what I'm saying, was the opposite. And I appreciate that. I appreciate experiences like that to humble my ass. Even though I'm not rah-rah American, you know, all that Western, not Western psychology, or Western kind of like imperialist psychology that gets fucking beaten, conditioned into us. I'm still letting go of that shit. So anytime like this, where it's like, ooh, yeah, other cultures, and I'm learning stuff about these cultures, and I'm learning like language, and I'm hearing perspectives and differences, like, oh man, like I was having a psycho-emotional orgasm, like just during this experience, because it was so like rewarding to me. But anyways, so at the end, when it was like, okay, we got to go up there and you know, you got to share, you know, what you talked about, some interesting insights, etc. They're like, oh, you don't have to come up, you know, you could sit at your table and do it. And you know, most of the other people who went up before, they went up there, but I was like, nah, I'll just sit here. I'm going to go up there. You know, I was feeling like kind of self-conscious sort of thing, you know what I'm saying? But then I was like, I always smile at myself. I'm like, oh, okay, then we're going up there, right? Just completely just, you know what I'm saying? Like, once I've understood, like, oh, this is what you want to do? Okay, you know, just pivot with it, right? Just smile at yourself and pivot with it, right? We know the best thing for us lots of times that we don't want to do. You know, I truly reject when people are like, I don't know what to do. Nah, you do. You just don't want to do it. Let's be honest. You just don't want to do it. You just don't want to do it. Well, I get it. There's lots of things. That's why it's like you got to be not a coward. You have to be brave. As Shogim talks about in this book. You got to be brave. Because cowards, yeah, they're like, oh, this is what I got to do for transformation? I don't want to do all that. That seems like a lot of work. And it's not that we have these actual conversations like this, but we're like, okay, this is what it takes to do this, and then we just won't work on it. Or we'll just start doing something else, and just, you know, it could take on many, many different forms, right? We can jump into a relationship, distract us from whatever transformation that we're running from. But the brave spiritual warrior would be like, oh, that's what needs to be done, and that's what will be done, right? We'll make it happen. And even in the face of challenges and adversities on the way to looking into oneself, to appreciating oneself, to having forgiveness for oneself, to having compassion to oneself, the brave move on. You know, they don't turn around. They move on. Because, listen, it's the work. It's the great work. It's the hokey pokey. You turn yourself around. I don't know if that's the basis of the hokey pokey. That's my speculation, that it's about turning yourself around in terms of your own inner alchemy. Maybe. Maybe not. But yeah, it's about turning yourself around and not being a coward and being afraid of looking at one yourself. You know, there's someone I've been talking to who's been in a very low place, and I befriended them. And while I like this woman, she's in a very low place, and there's a no place for dates right now and relationships and any sort of thing like that. And maybe she likes me too, but who knows? You know, but I'm just talking with her and trying to really not even give her advice, but just listen. And really listen in a spiritual occult way, not just in a normal human normie way, right? And give kind of more, if I do say, give me feedback, you know, because I don't believe in solutions anymore. Solutions are a human thing, and they have their place, but, you know, sometimes these things are existential or spiritual, and then just needs a wider perspective. Anyway, so, you know, while I've been talking with her, you know, I've just been, I lost my train of thought. I lost my gosh darn train of thought, folks. I don't know where I was going with that. The point I'm trying to make is, let me see, not appreciating ourselves. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. It's not that I lost my train of thought. I really just don't even know where I was going at that point. Isn't that what losing your train of thought is, though? Okay. Well, Bring a brave spiritual warrior requires you to not be a coward. And I was just okay. So I was going on about just not being a coward, right? Not being a coward to look and see what's there, right? To be able to face the pain, to be able to face the tragedy, right? And it's not that you need to like stare at it for hours, and not that you need to feel it for hours, but you need to find a way to begin facing it if you're not facing it. I was talking about the basement. It's just if you're not going down there, that just excrement, pain, it'll start really, really getting toxic. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I was thinking about last night after I did the thing. Okay, so, maybe you have some pain shit. And, then after a while it starts to ferment. But here's the thing. After it ferments, it turns into something else. And then it's usable again. You know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes you gotta like take that shit. And maybe you didn't do shit with it. It's just been over there fermenting. But it ferments into something else. Right? You can use that. You use that fermented shit. Use it. Use it for something. Because it's all about transformation. And I gotta watch The Bodyguard one of these days. I don't know. I mean, I love Whitney Houston. Kevin Costner. What's his best movie? Does he have a really good movie? Dances with Wolves. Is he good in that movie? Anybody? Call me up. Send me a MySpace message. And tell me about Dances with Wolves. Was it trash? Was it appropriation? Is it a good movie? Is it like Pocahontas? Like, does he fall in love with a native woman and then he brings her back? Or are they in America? I don't know what's going on with that. I'm getting off track here. All right, I've lost my steam. And also a friend is coming over. Maybe they're outside like, where the fuck are you? I've been messaging you for 4 hours. No, she would have called. Oh, okay. So we gotta vote for Dances with Wolves. Okay. I trust your movie judgment also. So it gets like an extra point. You know what I'm saying? If it was just some random person in here that I had no idea who they were, I'd be like, oh, okay. But okay, all right. I've actually compiling a list. I watched this movie recently. Not movie. I watched this video recently where it was a person who he's a cinephile, and he was talking about his top, like his greatest movies of all times list, right? So I learned about, I learned about a whole bunch of movies that I'd never even heard of before. Some of them were foreign films. And also, he talked about movies that were, I'd heard about, or some that I'd watched. But he talked about why he felt these movies were great. It was just very interesting to hear him talk about it. It really got me kind of intrigued to watch some of these films, especially some of these foreign films. Like one of them was like this Japanese film that's 4 hours long, but just the most absurd plot for a movie I've ever heard. And it's like a great movie too. It's not just an absurd plot. It's actually a great film. As he was saying, but I'll make the determination when I watch it. But yeah, so I've been compiling a list of things, and also I've kind of expanded out to just other movies that's like, I'm like, oh, I'll get to that movie where, I just kind of for years, I'll get to that movie. Like one randomly that came to me, it's like, oh, Wishmaster. Someone mentioned something about Wishmaster, and I was like, ooh, yeah, especially my interest in Occult. I was like, ooh, a Djinn is in this? Oh yeah, I'm in for this movie. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, Field of Dreams. I don't think I ever saw Field of Dreams. I may have seen parts of that. May have seen a few parts of the old Field of Dreamsers. the point to wrap this whole live up, because I've lost my, I'm done. You know when you're done. And I'm hungry too. I'm gonna have work for 9 days, so that's exciting. The point is, the ultimate test in this work is the compassion, forgiveness for yourself. That's the ultimate test, right? It's frankly easy to be compassionate for other people, combat and forgive other people. I'm not saying it's actually easy, especially when people have done fucked up things to you. But sometimes we hold on to that fucked up shit, and we don't want to let that go. We don't want to be. It's like we think it's like part of us is like, yeah, we need to be compassionate for ourselves. We need to forgive ourselves. But we're holding on to the pain. We're holding on to the misery. We're holding on to the just all the shit. And it's not that we want to actually hold on to it, but it's like we're used to holding on to it because that's the like conditioning and training that we've absorbed, we've accepted, we've received, we've perpetuated in our lives. That it's like, oh yeah, fucked up shit, trauma, pain, misery. Yeah, just hold on to that shit. Just have a little place right here where just you store all your traumas, and then even in your hip, you just store your traumas in there, and you just leave them there. You just keep filling yourself up with all those tragedies, all that misery, and just don't let it go. Don't wash it out. Just keep it all in here, and just till you're filled to the rafters with guilt and shame and feelings of loathing and despair and all these things, right? We don't have our metabolism for these energies is stifled lots of times. It's stifled from family members. It's stifled from authority figures. It's stifled by ourselves, right? But when we're younger, the fucking authority figures and parents are fucking like, hey, what are you doing with that pain? Keep that inside. What are you doing? You trying to metabolize that pain? How dare you? You're grounded. In addition to causing more trauma and pain, and some of the trauma and pain is just being a child in the world is just sort of incidental, frankly. Like you can have the great parents, and I feel like my parents were very good parents, but there's still incidental trauma that just occurs of just raising children. In addition to like if they're just really fucked up and really caught up in their own pain, their own misery, their own anger, then it's like, oh, then they're just adding additional like conscious trauma to your situation, right? And that has to be dealt with, and having forgiveness for them. And that's hard. I know we're talking about forgiveness and compassion for self, but I just always trace it back with my parents, and I think about like your parents and their educational level, their knowledge level, and the wisdom they were able to receive, right? And think about their parents, and maybe, they got to a certain point, right? And the parents before that. So it's like generations and generations have gotten less than stellar psychological and emotional guidance for many years, right? And, I feel if you have children, the best thing you can do, yeah, big facts, exactly. The best thing you can do if you have children is to minimize through understanding yourself and understanding your parents, what trauma, what damage you can pass on to your child based on how you were raised, how you were, how your ego mind personality was constructed. Because again, it's like that shit you absorb. It's not your essence. It's not your truest part of yourself. It's something you absorb for survival in this, as you just put it, in this traumatic realm. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're going to keep getting punched in the face until you put your hands up. That's what our ego is. It's us putting our hands up. But the problem is, it just takes over, and then we'll always have our hands up, and we're always punching, and we're always blocking, you know what I'm saying? Even if there's nothing there, even if there's nothing actually going on, we're just trained to keep our hands up because you'll get slapped, right? And there's been plenty of times we've been slapped, we've been abused, we've been tortured and gone through pain and misery, when we were children, when we were young. Even when we're adults, but we're primarily talking about childhood right now because You gotta get a handle on that, you know. And it's like, you know, then you'll probably understand the shit you're doing now and what that stems from. But yeah, your ego, it's a survival mechanism, right? While you're here. If you didn't have an ego, you more or less be a schizophrenic because you don't have any sort of solid identity. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's part of the survival here. That's like, you know, as much as I will not claim to truly be Christopher Presley, for a matter of convenience, if someone meets me, I'm not going to say I'm an all-encompassing energy that is both everything and nothing, and also no thing, right? Unless maybe that's what I'm going for. You know, maybe if that's what I'm going for, I'm trying to impress some hottie, some spiritual hottie. Maybe I'll say that as a joke. But for most people, I'm just going to say either whether it's my alter ego, Posh Gibson, or I'm going to say I'm Chris Presley, you know, whatever, right? That's a matter of just convenience for, you know, than saying what I said before, right? But is it the truth? You know, in an extent, it's this role I'm playing, you know? Is Kevin Costner actually the person in Dances with Wolves? No, he is portraying that wolf. He's portraying that character in the movie. I am playing this character, this mystical fool character, currently in this Malkuth Mirage. What's the other M word? Malkuth Mirage Matrix. You know, that's the character I'm playing, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's only a character I'm playing as much as I want to buy into, oh, this is the script, this is the role I'm playing, there's my lines, right? As much as I want to buy into that, it'll be my character. Because it's like, I can be fucking Green Tara tomorrow in this fucking movie. If I'm feeling that frisky in my mind. The point is, you know, like sometimes when people are getting into Buddhism, it's like, what can I do for the world to help the world, right? And that's egotism too, frankly, folks. But we'll put that aside for right now. Not all the time, but it fundamentally can be out of ego, like I need to help the world, right? That sort of thing. I've talked about them before. I don't need to get into that right now. But like, oh, what can I do to help the world? And the real teachers would be like, oh, you want to help the world? Forgive yourself and give compassion to yourself for a whole year. That is your practice. Think people want to do that? People don't want to fucking do that shit. They'd rather be out there helping all the other people. Oh, all these people need help. Which doesn't mean people don't need help. But you need help. You're suffering. You got pain. You got regrets. You got misery going on in your life. You gotta deal with that first. You gotta be compassionate to that first. Because then you're gonna be spreading all that around when you think you're trying to help people out of your ego. Because you're trying to make yourself feel better. Jesus. Buddha. Ganesha. So it's like you gotta do that on yourself. If you want to do it for the world, really check yourself. Are you doing it for yourself, like sustainably, like all the time? Not just like, okay, we got backlogged with trauma from childhood, even though like someone I've been talking to, like a woman, she was saying she saw someone who had like abused her or hurt her again recently, and she's like, I thought I had healed. But it's been really hard. And I was just like, oh shit. Because it's like, you know what? Maybe you did heal. And you gotta keep healing. And then maybe in 4 years something will happen, you gotta keep healing that again. And maybe it's never over. At least in that dynamic. You know, you get to that could happen. You know what I'm saying? But you don't turn away from it. You don't get bitter like, well, I'm not healing anymore from this. This is bullshit. I should be healed for what that person did to me. Because what's underneath that? All that anger. There's still a lot of pain. There's still a lot of pain there. Right? That needs to be dealt with, you know? And, you know, that's why it's like Frank Gore. This is a funny tangent I'm about to go on. Frank Gore is one of my favorite fucking people of all time. Frank Gore was an NFL running back for many years. He went to Miami, and for many years he played for the San Francisco 49ers. Wasn't a big guy. He was like 5'9". He wasn't a big guy, right? But he was a great running back. This dude probably had like 4 knee surgeries throughout his life. Like, so many knee injuries. But you know what? Like, not only was he a great college running back, not only was he a great pro running back, he got to 10,000 yards, which is like, yo, that's the mark. Is like, yo, you did something as a running back. You did 10,000 yards. And again, he wasn't the biggest guy, and he had numerous injuries going against him. And I don't know, it was that dude's willpower, because it's just a testament to him, because that is not normally how those stories go. Like, all those knee injuries, size, you know what I'm saying, the punishment of being an NFL running back and being productive and good usually doesn't happen like that. But for him, it did, you know? And I can imagine, this is why I'm bringing this up, after each one of those knee injuries, doing the rehab, he probably was like, maybe this is it. Maybe I should give up. Maybe I should retire. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm going to come back. I'm probably not going to be that good. He probably had all these, or maybe he didn't. I'm speculating, but maybe the first one, it's like, okay, we're going to come back. And then the second one, it's like, okay, all right, okay, we'll come back. And then, like, I don't know, like the third one, and I'm sure he had other injuries, but, you know, knee injuries for a running back, that's like the death knell. You know, but probably on that third one, or I don't even know if it was 3 or 4, but he had lots of injuries that he came back from and was still productive, is my point. So I can just imagine, you're like, oh, I'm going to come back again. I'm going to do all this rehab again and come back. And who knows if I'm even going to start, if someone's taking my job, if I'm even going to be productive, you know, if I'm even going to play again, right? All these questions, all these, thoughts, but he did time and time again. And he retired, and he retired a fucking Hall of Famer. And it's just such a beautiful testament to, like, people's will. You know what I'm saying? This is like, he wasn't a coward. That man was not a coward. You know what I'm saying? I know it's like I'm talking about football, and I get it, but there was something in him that was not a coward, that was brave enough to keep coming back from those injuries, to keep, you know, playing the game that he obviously loved. They actually obviously wanted to play and keep playing as much as he could, you know, and, you know, I think that's probably what led to his success at the end of the day. I'm crying about Frank Gore, everybody. But shout out to you, Frank Gore. I would definitely get a Frank Gore jersey. So if anyone wants to, you know, send me a Frank Gore jersey, feel free. But anyways, to wrap it all up, that compassion for oneself, that forgiveness oneself, that's the main thing. That's the main thing, you know, because especially in terms of empathy, there will always be stuff out there to be compassionate about, to do compassionate things for, to care about, to show kindness towards, to help. That is not your primary objective. Your inner path is your primary objective. It's probably the top 4 objectives, frankly. And everything out there is fluff, frankly. What's going on with you? How are you helping yourself out? What compassion are you giving to yourself? What forgiveness are you giving to yourself? True, deep forgiveness, not like a fake forgiveness. Oh yeah, I forgive myself. No, you forgive yourself for the most fucked up shit you've ever done. The most just unkind things you've ever done. The meanest things you've ever said. You go there, right? You look at those things. And now, you don't have to beat yourself up for these moments, right? And, you know, Shanti Diva puts it, you don't get, if someone's mad at you, it's like, we should really be mad at the anger, not the person. But it's obviously easier to be mad at the person than the kind of not superfluous, but kind of amorphous energy that is anger. You know what I'm saying? We can't like hold energy like a bottle and be like, hey, I'm mad at you, anger. That was rude what you said to me, right? But a person, we can be like, yeah, fuck you. Like, how dare you say that? You know, it's an easier thing for us to latch onto. Even if we understand that it's like that person is operating out of their mirages, just like I operate out of my mirages sometimes. But that's hard to do when someone's yelling at you, just angry at you, right? Like that's why sometimes if there's a woman I'm interested in, like, maybe I'm talking to her, or going on dates with her, and it was a great time, and I have these great feelings and moments. I always have a moment where I was like, I try to think about that person, the meanest or most angriest they could be at me, just to kind of see what I think that would be like. You know what I'm saying? Not the saying that they would ever be super angry with me. You know what I'm saying? But, things could happen. So I always like try to temper, like, oh yeah, this is so great. Oh, this person's so wonderful. You know what I'm saying? But hey, man, start getting deeper in a relationship, people get started real annoyed with shit. Again, shit from our ego mind. We just listen to it. It's like, yeah, I hate how that bitch chews. Oh my God, I never noticed it until now. Why is she chewing like that? Oh God, stop chewing so loudly, right? Don't know where I was going with that either, but the point is, forgiveness of self is the main point, and really looking at that. Oh, and I was also going to bring up, so I got this woman. This is so great. I got this woman. There's this woman named Nita. Okay, it's Sakhashri Nita. And I've watched her videos about chakras, and they've really resonated with me and really hit home on some shit. And so she offers lots of services related to kind of chakra work, and also just kind of like personal, just counseling, I guess you could say. And so she did some shit where it's like you give her your birth information, and they give you like a whole report on yourself and kind of feedback of, what you want to work on, that sort of thing, right? So, I got this report. And it was very interesting, it goes into lots of things, and like it gives kind of like Vedic astrology stuff, which I'm found very interesting, kind of going through, because it's like I've sort of delved in that before, but this is like a whole report that's very thorough on my like Vedic astrology chart. I'm learning just different kind of things in Vedic astrology related to, when I was born, and kind of specific aspects about me that's kind of been interesting insights in certain ways. But anyways, so she kind of gives advice in addition to like kind of, hey, listen to these mantras, do these mantras, wear these gems, things like that. She has like a technique that I was like, I've never heard this one before. This is so smart. So essentially I would call this inducing psycho-emotional vomiting. Okay, so all right, so this exercise will empty you of your deeply engraved negative mental patterns and worries about any one aspect in your life. It will clear all your suppressed emotions of anger and worry. Once you do this technique, you will feel very light and be free from worries and complex mental patterns. Do this once in your life and feel the lightness you experience. Do it as intensely as possible. Then you will never feel the need to do again in your life for that aspect. All right, this technique should be done on an empty stomach, or at least 2 hours after a major meal. Stand with your eyes closed. Go deeply inside yourself and feel all the pent-up rage, anger, hurt, worries due to different reasons. See how heavy you feel. Now just start making nonsensical sounds. This is where I was like, ooh, nonsensical sounds. Like, okay. Do not use words to speak out. If you use words, only familiar and recent emotions will surface, and also words will rise to only more words without actually working on the emotions behind them. Which, now that I'm rereading, this is a good point, because it's like, you want to keep the ego mind out of this, right? You just want to work with the emotions, and if you're talking, the ego mind is be like, yeah, this and that, blah, blah, blah. I'm the ego mind. We're talking. We're using words, right? So yeah, nonsensical. It's like ego mind's like, damn it. Oh, I don't have anything for that. If you use words, only familiar and recent emotions will surface, and also words will rise to only more words without actually working on the emotions behind them. It's like the words are the front for the feeling. Now speak softly or loudly, absolute gibberish like la la, da da do do. Only this will open out the unconscious in you. Only this will open out the deeply hidden emotions. Wave your arms, shout, scream. If tears flow, let them flow. Do it with all your might to vomit out all your negative feelings. Recall the painful incidents as clearly as possible. Visualize the persons involved and feel the emotions involved in those incidents. Bring out all the emotions. Become completely immersed in them. In gibberish tone, vomit your hurt, pain, anger, and everything that you wanted to tell them but could not. One incident will lead to another, and keep on releasing till you remember nothing else. Do not stop for at least 21 minutes. At the end of 21 minutes, stop. With your eyes closed, sit down in silence for at least 5 minutes. Be a witness to your thoughts. Feel the lightness in your being. Your whole being will be very light and free. And then she gives you some affirmations. But I thought that was so brilliant on so many things. I never even heard that before. It makes so much sense where it's like, you know, if you're hungover or even if you're drunk, what do you do to deal with the poisoning, right? You induce vomiting. And our psyche and in our emotions, we gotta induce some vomiting. We gotta get some stuff up, right? And there's many ways. I mean, meditation is like that's the walk route, right? That's the long-term one, right? It's not the sexiest, quickest way, but that's the long-term way of having this come up, right? You know, it's like you're just walking down a long desert road, right? It's nothing glamorous about it, but it's sustainable and it's consistent, and you know, it's what needs to be done. But you know, there's other things. We talk about ayahuasca and shrooms and things like that. But in terms of a non-invasive practice, this is a pretty good one. And I haven't done this yet because I literally want to like go out in the fucking woods and like just like go fuck it in. Go fuck it in. You know what I'm saying? Go fuck it in. You know, and be like, you know, I want to fucking, you know, it's like, just go the fuck all the way fucking in and just fucking, get all the psychological, emotional, bits vomited out of our consciousness. So, anyways, that is it. I may honestly do another video on this. Maybe not tomorrow, but, cause I feel like I didn't really touch on a lot of stuff related to forgiveness and compassion for oneself. But peace out. Don't be a coward, be brave. And that bravery means being forgiving oneself and being compassionate with self. But at the very least, being brave enough to be curious about maybe if you are having an issue forgiving yourself and being compassionate toward yourself. Be curious. Oh, wonder what's going on there, right? Don't turn that into like, oh, I'm a piece of shit because I can't forgive myself. Oh, I'm a piece of shit because I can't be compassionate myself. Because you know what that is, folks? What is it? What's that? What's that sound? What's that again? Oh, a clever ego mind trick. Okay? Anyway, it could prop you up or beat you down at will. And that's the game. So I bid you adieu, mon cheries. And remember, only do drugs if they're given to you in an alley. No. I mean, if it's during the day, yeah. But, you know, if it's like dusk, like, probably not. Midnight? I feel like dusk, that's when I would trust if someone gave me drugs in it. Not trust, when I would mistrust someone giving me drugs in the alley. Midnight, I feel like it's like, that's when I wouldn't trust someone. I feel like the fact someone is giving me free drugs in an alley at midnight, that's why I do trust them. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a reverse psychology thing. Yes, farewell. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, get all your drugs in a well-lit alley for market price. All right, that's enough.